Hi, thanks for joining us today. We're Kirsten and Troy Clark, and we are here to answer some questions that we get about right sizing and kind of talk you through our process and answer some of these questions that we see.
So right sizing, is that the same as downsizing?
Not quite. Actually, it's a little bit different. I would say downsizing tends to be a little more reactive, and right sizing is really about being thoughtful with the process.
All right. Yeah. No, I like it. I mean, I think, and how, like, where do people start? How do we know that they're actually able, or wanting to make the move?
I think often people are thinking about it long before they're actually ready, and we can go more into that. But I think when you're thinking about starting, it's best to either talk to friends that have done it, or maybe reach out to real estate agents like us just to hear more about what the process is.
Yeah. It's really about, I mean, you'd say it's about thinking about what you want your life to look like.
Right.
And not necessarily just looking at try to break from the logistics of geez, moving would be hard, or I've been in this house for so long. I mean, these are all things to think about, right? It's
right, but it's a very intentional, these choices.
Yeah.
It's not just about kind of ping-ponging around. It's in just thinking, you don't want to play Goldilocks and Three Bears and trying to find the right bed.
Right.
You want to find the right house when you make this move, because it's a big deal often for people.
How would you say, how do people know when they're ready to make a move, versus just kind of thinking about
I think it's when you start looking at your house and you just, there's little things that maybe don't feel like they fit quite right.
I mean, first of all, as Kirsten gets overwhelmed, kind of, and feeling like you're ready for a change, they can kind of coexist. They can be there at the same time. So really, it's like taking that pause and really kind of thinking about what do you want your life to look like, and talking through it with
right.
To talk about options.
Right. Really looking at your house and asking the question, does this house serve me? It served me for very much of my life, but does it still serve me in that same way?
Right.
And you and I have done this ourselves with just how when we were living in separate houses and looking about whether or not do we want to.
That was before we were married.
Yes. Yes. Thanks for clarifying. When we first met, and we were looking to either sell one house or both houses and do something different. And we realized that neither of our houses fit what the future us was going to look like.
Sure.
And so, and that was for very many reasons. There wasn't just one clear cut because of this or that.
What happens when you feel guilty about, like, you've lived in this, you lived in a house and it's like where I raised my girls, or, whatever it was.
Mm-hmm.
How do you know when that's not the reason to stay in the house?
I think guilt is really common. And I think people conflate guilt with just actually the deep emotion of the great memories you had in that house.
Yeah.
And that's
right.
tough. And it's tough. It's often tough to separate the two.
Yeah.
Because you feel perhaps like you're letting your family down by letting go of the family home. However, at a certain point, there is the opportunity for a new beginning and something even better for the family. And, just because you are no longer able to make the memories in that home doesn't mean that maybe one of your children or other family members is going to be the next one to host, and they're going to be excited to have the opportunity to make those same memories in their house. So
true.
It's really giving a gift to someone else.
I hadn't thought about that part, but yes. Mm-hmm. And the guilt means that you care deeply for the house. And when you move to your new home that fits your lifestyle better, mm-hmm. you can still move the memories of the old house. Just because you had a great time doesn't mean you have to live in that house forever. It doesn't take away the great times or the great way that the house served you.
So another question we get a lot is, what if one of us is ready for this change and not the other? And we actually have seen that a lot too. And it's often, I see two different versions of this. One is tied to the guilt factor.
Yeah.
And that tends to be more women, not always, but that kind of because you've done a lot of the homemaking, especially inside the house. And but often it's men are not ready to leave because they really like like how they're able to live in the house,
or
and maybe
it's part of their personality, or
right.
part of how they see themselves, living in that house. And it just feels like different. And sometimes, you get connected to the neighbors. Moving away, then now the neighbors aren't neighbors
right.
anymore.
Yeah, it's a big change. It's not just your house you're giving up; it's everything that goes around with it. And so when you are in this position, which is extremely normal, I think the best thing to do is to just start having the conversations around what if we did make a move, not when we make it, but what does that look like? How do we make it so both of us
or what are we looking for, right? In
right.
in the next phase, in the next 10 years, what would we like our life to look like? Right? Outside of, well, it's in this house.
Right.
But I mean, do you want to be, in this town? Do you want to be in a different town? Maybe it's time to explore a little bit. Maybe it's time for less overhead. Maybe it's time for more space. Maybe the house is just feeling like it's a maintenance beast, and it's time to move into something newer that doesn't require that in that phase of your life.
I think the most important piece with this particular challenge that couples face is to take your time and not force it, but really give both of you the opportunity to explore this together, find what does fit, and just trust the process,
right?
And not try to rush it.
Okay, yeah. So, like, where do they start? I mean, do they start looking at just new home, or looking at listings, going into Zillow and just start scrolling?
There's a few things you can do. So yes, looking at listings is great because that does allow you to imagine what your future life can look like.
Yeah.
Whether it's local or if it's out of town, especially, it's really fun just to look, kind of just window shop, so to speak, and start imagining what could this look like. And from the overwhelm piece, there is also the just the volume of things you've collected through the years. And I know even when my parents were here yesterday, my mom even joked and said, "Oh, I feel sorry for you guys when we need to move out of this house, which will be when they're probably not able to move themselves. You're going to have a lot to deal with." I mean, so for your children's sake, start looking at your belongings now and think about what needs to stay and what could be donated.
Right.
And make that part of your process. It does help with the emotional letting go as well as you slowly start to right size your belongings into your next life as well.
Right. And if you're thinking about a move that's bigger than just cross town or into a different neighborhood or even just a different street, I mean, we have friends that spent, a year basically or two kind of taking travels to different cities that they thought maybe they would want to live in. Right. And going to look at some houses in those cities and maybe even as they narrowed it down, then they made trips back at different seasons just to kind of see what it was like.
Yes, because ironically, they went to Michigan. They loved Michigan in the winter, which is when we thought, wow, they're really going to like this. And they came back and they said, this is the best place. And then they went back in early March and they said, we can't live here because these shoulder seasons, it's just mucky out all the time. And we can't do any of our outdoor activities because it's just like there's nowhere to go where you're not just covered in muck. And I thought that was really surprising. That was not what we had expected.
For outdoor activities.
Right.
And stuff,
yes.
Yeah.
So it was funny to just watch that and kind of enlightening to live vicariously through them and watch them explore.
I thought places. It was really interesting. And I think we even personally have had fun thinking about, like, could we live someplace different? Let's just try out some different cities and, maybe even do like an Airbnb and spend a couple weeks in a city, just work from there. Obviously in real estate now, that doesn't so great for us for working remote for a long time, but it is an option if you have some periods where you could do remote work just to kind of pick up and go to a different city, if that's what you're thinking. But I think most people we're talking to are kind of relocating within town or across town, or moving from Rockland to Roseville or to Folsom or El Dorado Hills, or kind of just floating around Sacramento and finding kind of that new area they want to explore more deeply.
Right. So our next question is around, how do we figure out how much space we actually need, which I think is a great question, especially when we talk about rightsizing versus downsizing.
Well, we need a bigger garage always.
True.
just to say that.
Yes.
But and it is. I think it's funny because a lot of people are talk about, we need an extra bedroom, for the guests that come stay. Depending on if you're trying to balance, because we all have a budget to live in. So having a budget that's not abnormal. We all have a budget. Maybe one of the trade-offs is it's that, the big pool or the fancy backyard, and maybe it's less extra bedrooms,
right?
Because maybe there's a hotel down the street and that would work just fine.
Right. And not only that,
just
really thinking realistically about how often do people actually come stay the night with you. If you have lots of kids and are out of town, they're coming, and they bring their family with you, maybe the extra bedrooms make sense. If you have good friends that visit twice a year, maybe it doesn't make sense to have that extra bedroom.
Yeah.
And same with the dining room. That's, I think, one area that we see a lot of people struggle with is like, well, I really want to be able to have lots of people over for dinner. And I definitely am guilty of this as well. The reality of it is we've hosted my family here, I think, twice in 4 years. And most of the time it tends to be 4 to 6 people that are here. So do we really need a giant dining room? No, we don't. What we have here is sufficient. And I'm glad we didn't take up more space in our house with the dining room.
Yeah, no, it's true.
Yeah.
So where do people start? In other words, should they start selling their current house now, or should they be shopping for their future house?
Right. And I actually have 2 great examples that highlight both why you should sell first and maybe why you would want to wait and find your perfect home first. So first example, we have a wonderful friend that is relocating here from Washington, and she had looked at homes here and decided she really wanted to wait until she got her home in Washington sold first. And we said, well, when you sell that house, you're going to have to find something here very quickly. And often she's looking in Lincoln Hills, it can sell quickly as well. So you have to be prepared to move quickly, make a decision, and be willing to stand the pressure of a bidding war, which happens.
Yeah, the struggle is that you can't shop remotely and then come and visit and see a house and then go back home and expect the house is going to be available a month from now. All the nice, the houses that were highly desirable are moving within a couple weeks.
Right. So long story short, she got her house sold in Washington. She came down here, found her dream home, and for various reasons, that house didn't work out. We had her in contract in a second house where actually the seller canceled, which never happens, but they had a personal situation. And now we finally have her in escrow on the house that she is going to move into, but we're trying to close it in less than 10 days because her house is closing on Friday.
And she needs a place to go.
Yes. So a lot of added stress that maybe if she had decided to buy first and then sell, it might have actually been easier for her and less stressful. But regardless, we helped her through it, and we're going to have the happy ending that we all wanted for her.
That situation though does allow for her to, she's basically paying cash for the house because her house is closing and her new house is closing like within days of each other. They're just going to move the money from one to the other, is basically what's happening.
But there is a bridge loan option for that as well, and that's something that we could help you with if you're
We have some great
interested.
lending partners and we can refer out to, and that can help with that. That was one of the options we visited.
And we have another client right now that is in the exact opposite situation. So they are in a smaller home, and they do actually have family that are coming from out of the country, and they know they're going to be coming once in September and once in December, which as we're filming this is 4 to 6 months from now. So they're smart. They're starting early, and they said, we want to sell our house first and see how much money we have to work with before we upsize to something bigger. However, they have friends that will let them stay there at their home for free until they find their next home, knowing it's only going to be a couple months. So for them, having a sale first makes a lot of sense. So I think that's the key piece. If you would like to sell first, it does actually relieve a lot of stress. Just make sure you have a place to go next, whether you already have a rental lined up.
Right.
You have gracious friends that will let you stay with them.
I mean, it could be months.
Right. It could be depending on what your goals are. Yes.
Yes. I mean, it likely is from the time that you move out to the time that you move into your new house. It's at least a month.
Right.
I mean, very likely. I mean, there's rare circumstances we can move it faster, but if we find a vacant home and things like that. But if you're really looking for the house, it's going to be a couple months that you should be prepared. So there's a cost involved with that. Right. It's just a balancing act. So it's nice to not have to be carrying two homes. There's a cost involved in that. Or there's the cost of staying in a rental or a hotel or with friends. We all know there's a cost involved with staying long, for a couple months at a friend's house. So
next question we wanted to talk about was, what if you're not sure whether you want to stay in this area or possibly move out somewhere else, either just outside your general area where you've lived, maybe just to another county, or potentially move, out of state. And some of the things you need to think about are what your priorities are. Is it cost? Especially taxes can look differently in many different states. Yeah. Something you really need to pay attention to because it varies dramatically, whether it's income tax, property tax.
Yes.
Even sales tax and what you pay.
And sometimes some other states, the property tax may be not as high that right now, but often it's, unlike in California where it's regulated on how much it can go up every year. Some states reevaluate the house value each year or every couple of years. So there's a chance as your house appraises, your property taxes are going up rapidly with it, which can make for a big surprise. Just something to factor in the search.
Something else is really how important is it to you to maintain your community of family and friends? Yeah. And I'm going to actually point to my parents with this example. So my parents have lived in the Bay Area their entire lives. At one point, they actually did buy a house out here in Sun City, Lincoln Hills by us where we live. And their plan had been to retire and move out to that area. And I was really excited. I wanted them close to me. However, as they reached retirement age, they realized that the community and network of friends that they have where they currently live and the organizations that they're involved with were really a very integral part of their daily lives. And they realized that moving out here and being close to me, while fantastic, and their grandchildren, the reality of how often they'd be able to see me and the kids and spend time with us would probably not be enough to offset having to rebuild a whole new community here as well. And it felt, I think, very overwhelming to them. So ultimately, we ended up selling their house in Lincoln Hills and they stayed in the Bay Area, which was great. I'm happy for them. They have lived a very full life there and they still come see us and we get to see them too.
Yeah. And then sometimes people don't have as deep a hooks in the community that they're currently in, and maybe their kids have grown and moved away. And so then they're kind of left with, maybe they're retiring from work. Kids have moved away. It's like, well, time to try something new.
Why am I here?
Yeah, maybe move closer to the kids, or just pick a whole new place. And the kids can come visit. You can go visit the kids.
But I will say, kind of pointing back to that community aspect of it, it is great to give yourself the opportunity to try it out on a temporary basis before you make the permanent move. Like Troy mentioned earlier, considering staying in an Airbnb nearby for a couple of weeks or a month and just seeing what it feels like to go to the grocery store, the restaurants that you like. Can you go for walks if you want to? Is there a river or lake nearby? The activities that you like to do right now, making sure you can still have them in your life if you relocate somewhere else.
Plus, it's kind of a fun adventure.
Yes, it is. Yes.
So what are some of the big mistakes that you see people doing when right-sizing?
Actually, the biggest mistake that I feel we've seen is that people have waited too long.
Yes.
And mostly, I think we've seen that with parents and friends of our parents and actually parents of our friends. Reverse that. It's hard because I think there is so much tying you to your home. It's sometimes difficult to find a compelling reason to leave, other than the fact that maybe your house is just too much for you to maintain. Yeah. And it's easier to hold on to the memories than to take the risk of letting those go and risking and feeling like maybe the next step, you don't know what that would be like or how it would feel. So you just wait.
Right. I think some of the other things is it's tough to consider what the aging looks like too if you're going to age into your house. And so I think a lot of people discover their house is not for them when they hit the wall of mobility, getting in and out of a shower, having to step over a curb, or going up and down stairs if it's a two-story house, or it's on a hill and it's hard to get up and down the hill. There's a lot of yard work. So it's things to kind of, I find that most people kind of wait until it's really hitting them in the face that this isn't going to be a good fit, and then it's more of a kind of a panic move or a rushed move.
Yes.
Versus a strategized plan, like let's be prepared for this.
Right. Although it's understandable to be fearful of the process or fearful of what the next steps look like, often because it does signify that our lives are changing in ways that maybe we don't want them to. It's still better to kind of work with that fear, have conversation, find ways to be comfortable with it, than waiting too long and wishing you would have made the change. I think there's a lot of regret tied to that we've seen.
What do people feel when they've found the right size house?
I love this. This is one of my favorite parts of working in the real estate industry. When we see someone walk into their house, the first thing I notice is that instead of reasons why the house won't work for them, they look at the things that they've told us in the past won't work for them, and they tell us why it's okay for this house. Because it has this, and this, now I can accept the fact that I'm not going to have a dining room, that I just have a great room. And you know what? Yes. We really don't have too many family belongings. I don't know why I was so worried about that. This is perfect. Like,
it's that feeling of like relief or just comfort. Like when you walk, like that look on people's faces when you walk in, and people, it sounds so cliche, but when you walk into the right house, you do.
Yes. And you know, because you go into that, usually like one space at first that grabs you, whether it's you walk in the front door and you can see out the view to the backyard right from the front door, and it's stunning and green, and maybe there's a sparkling pool, or you walk into the kitchen, the great room, and you just see your family there. You have that moment and they pause and they just stop, and you see them just taking it all in, taking a deep breath. We just try to give them that minute to just absorb this feeling of, wow, this is it.
I will take a moment to interject that if we're off shopping with you and you have one of those feelings, I will say that there will be a moment when you freak out, when all the logistics of the move and maybe the house needs new paint and it feels like a lot all of a sudden. It's totally normal. It is so normal to have. It's like the cold feet before your wedding.
Yes.
You're in love with this person, but all of a sudden you're like, am I making the right decision?
I never felt that way.
Exactly. It's exactly the same sort of thing. And you'll work through it, and it will be like, and it will be great. But just be aware that will sneak up on you at some point. And that doesn't mean that it's the wrong decision.
No, not at all. In fact, usually when you found the right house, those things come up and you're like, oh yeah, well, that's fine. We can just deal with that after we've bought the house and moved in. Like, Troy could fix it for me. That's usually what I say.
Right. So if you want to come hang out with us and let us help you find the house, give us a call. We can help you talk through kind of what you're feeling like in your lifestyle today versus what you want in the future. We can help kind of figure out what the criteria are, what to do with the current home versus the new home, which comes first. All those things, we can work through it. And it's a fun process. And that's what we really love about it is kind of working through that with our clients, working with our client friends or making new friends. Give us a call. We'd love to sit down and chat with you about it.